So now I was really becoming famous by association here. And what started to happen was People magazine started to write stories, and I get a phone call. This is true stories, guys. I get a phone call from this guy named Ted Turner. And I didn't know who he was. Now, I had moved from Studio City now to Westwood, California. Had an apartment in Westwood. He gets my phone number, and he introduces himself to me on the phone, and he says, look, I have a television service called Cable News Network, and we want to make this service more family-friendly. And I would like you to do a fitness show. Now, just so you know, during this time, I was starting to do a little acting, because of the clients that I knew. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. And when he talked about a fitness show, I said, geez, I don't want to become Jake LaLanne. So let me think about it for a second. And he said, well, okay, you call me back, is really what he said. And I thought about it for a second. I said, wait a second. If we can create something, like a little vignette, like a commercial, that would promote me and you can pay for it, that would be kind of interesting to me. So I figured I'll take a shot. Look, what's the worst that's going to happen? And the theme of my whole story that I hope you get out of all of this is just take a shot. The worst that's going to happen is someone tells you no. And if they tell you no, you go somewhere else. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you take that shot. So I called Ted Turner back. And I said, I had this idea. What if I do these 60-second vignettes? We'll call them the Fitness Break by Jake. And I'll get a couple of models, and we'll demonstrate some exercises, and we'll get some sponsors together. He goes, done. And he said, but I can only pay you $20,000 for 200 one-minute vignettes is what he wanted. Now, this is a time when we all have to sit and think for a second, because today it's been very interesting. I'll stop for there and talk about myself today, talking to trainers or talking to potential people that we want to put in a commercial or we want to put on a show. And it's interesting to see how people think that if I'm going to get my shot, I want to get my shot, it's got to be big. It's got to be big right now, as opposed to understanding that we have to build a foundation. You got to build a foundation to build a brand. And the important thing about all of this is understanding it's a lean horse for a long race, if you want it to be. Passion leads and everything else follows. If you're doing stuff for the short dough, it's usually short dough. And it usually stops. And then there's no future. But if you're really passionate about what you're doing and there's a plan, and there's a position, and there's a passion, it works. Because if you stay in the game long enough, you'll win. I'm a true believer in that. So when I spoke to Ted Turner, I said, okay, I'll do it. Now, at the time, I was training Hugh Hefner and his girlfriend. So I went to Hugh Hefner, and I said, look, I'm doing these fitness breaks on Cable News Network. He said, what? I said, and I need to use some of the models, some of the girls. I can give them some good exposure, no pun intended. And he said, how many? I said, I need 12. And he said, okay. So we shot in 3 locations, in Beverly Hills and 2 places in Malibu. And I literally had 12 playmates, 2 at a time we used, and I shot 200 of these 1-minute vignettes. And it went something like this. Hey gang, I'm Jake, a Body by Jake, with your fitness tip of the day. Today we're gonna do bicep curls, and we're gonna use 2 cans of Mama's tomato paste. I have Marilyn, Miss September, and Barbara, Miss June, gonna join me. And we would do the exercise, and I would say, don't quit, because there was a poem that I was given in 8th grade when I was cut from my 8th grade basketball team. True story. And I was devastated, because that was the first time that I put myself out, and said, oh, I think I could play basketball. I was a legend in my own shower, and I couldn't play basketball, and I got cut. And this girl that I knew gave me a poem called Don't Quit, which I literally have that same plaque from 8th grade, sits at my desk, and that poem and that phrase, I actually trademarked the words Don't Quit in 1980 because they meant so much to me. So I ended each of the little vignettes with Don't Quit. And I will tell you, you can ask Sean, he's been to my office, the amount of publicity and and positive vibe and mail that we got. Back in the day, you get mail. We used to get mail from the Reagan White House that would say to me, every time your fitness break comes on, Jake, here at Casablanca, they called it, right? We stop when that Jake music comes on. And with all due respect to you, we sure love the talent standing next to you. And what was really interesting was, at the time with Cable News Network, is that the spots aired like 4 times a day in the States, but internationally they aired 4 times an hour. So the exposure for me internationally, without even me knowing it, was incredible. Now I could have said I didn't want to do it because you weren't paying me enough, but I decided, you know what, take a shot. And that led to all kinds of things because that legitimized me. So that led to a fitness television show in first-run syndication called Body by Jake, and now the client base I was building. Now this is something really important too, because I went from first-run syndication to ESPN, and I was rocking and rolling. I was a one-man army doing all kinds of things, but I was very careful about what I put my name on. I didn't want to do too much too soon, and that just came from my gut. You know, I remember I had 3 months of college. So it wasn't like I had a business degree. And this is something that everyone has to understand too. Go with your gut. Everybody here is here for a reason. You want to better yourself. You want to increase sales. You want to build a business, right? There's a reason why everybody's here. You're smart folks who understand that you're in a place, you're in a good place, but you want to get to a better place. My recommendation always is go with your gut. If you have to think too long about something, you shouldn't do it. So here I was, right, doing this fitness show. I have all these clients, and one morning, 1988, true story, I wake up and I say, I can't train anybody anymore. I've done this since 1979. If I train one more person, I will do this forever. Now, that's not a bad thing, I just want to say. But for me, what I felt was, I felt in Hollywood I trained everybody who was anybody. I was the first guy to do it, and now there's all kinds of great people doing it, and everyone was talking about this guy or that guy. I said, okay, let's leave. It's always nice to leave at the top of the game. And I had shows on the air, and I was looking at doing all kinds of things. Because of the relationships that I made and the people that I met, I was learning about television and learning about media and understanding about a brand. I remember when I gave out my first 12 t-shirts to my first 12 clients. First guy I gave it to was Steven Spielberg. And I gave him this great t-shirt, and he goes, wow, Body by Jake. That sounds like it's been around. That sounds like a brand, Jake. And he turned the shirt over, and it said, the Steinfeld method. And he goes, are you a gynecologist? I said, well, no, I figured I'd call it the Steinfeld method because my 30-minute work is, Jake, lose that right now. Body by Jake is a brand. It's not a method, it's not a system. Because if you think about it, a method and a system might be great, but they run out. And then the next method and system comes. And you always want to be above that. So what I looked at and what I learned was that Body by Jake, I said in my mind, is a lifestyle. That if you do yoga, if you do Pilates, if you run, if you walk, if you put your head through a wall, you're part of the Body by Jake team. And that's how I positioned it early on that way. And if you think about that, there have been many programs and many systems. I mean, look at what's happened today, right? You go from the days of Jane Fonda, right? You go to Billy Blanks with Tybo, huge, fantastic. Then you go to P90X, Zumba, all these great moments. But the goal is longevity. Stay in the game. Stay in the game. And that's really what it's all about. Now, from this point, I got my television shows going on, and I decide that, okay, I've done 800 episodes of Body by Jake, 30-minute shows. I've done 800 vignettes. I'm kind of running out of things to do with a broomstick that were legal. And I thought to myself, after watching Ted Turner had just launched a service called Headline News, I said, I'm going to launch a 24-hour fitness television network. And it's like, what are you, nuts? That's never going to work. Now, I never had any background in this, guys. And I'm just saying, once again, what I want to do is I hope to inspire you guys just to take that shot at whatever that dream is. Whatever you're thinking, don't put it away. You know, because if you think about this sometimes, right? You have this great idea at nighttime. Great idea. You write it down maybe. You're all fired up right when you go to bed. You can't wait. You get up in the morning, you start making your coffee, you read the paper, and you start thinking of the 1,800 reasons why this idea is not going to work. So before you walk out the door, you stop you. And what I want to tell you is get out of that zone. Take the shot.
You can keep up with NPE TV through Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube so that you can stay connected wherever your travels may take you.